Good morning. Hope you all are absolutely fit and fine. We are dealing with feminism. And in the previous clip, I told you how even some great masters like Aristotle, Aquinas, Nietzsche, and Sigmund Freud, how they have used derogatory words and expressions for women. And we also witnessed a deeply rooted gender bias in the biblical myth. I told you something about the biblical myth in relation to the creation of this world. Fine. And there we come to know that God Himself is a male, and that may be the reason that He created a male first and a female later. Fine. So the fact is that a movement emerged in order to revolt against this gender bias. And this movement took the form of feminism. Now let us talk about the term feminism. I mean, who used the term, who coined the term for the very first time. See, it was Charles Fourier, and he was a French utopian socialist. He coined the term feminism in 1837. Fine. So this is for your kind information. Now let us talk about the origin of this term. See, if you talk about the origin of this term, you will find that it is somehow uncertain and it is debatable also. And it can be traced back to 1871 when it was used as a medical term to define symptoms of feminization on the male patients. Fine. And in 1872, I mean just 1 year later, Alexander Dumas, he used the term in a pamphlet. The name of the pamphlet is Homme Femme. Homme Femme. So in 1872, Alexander Dumas he used the term in a pamphlet to identify women who basically behaved in a masculine way. Fine. So he was working on some women, and these women were they were behaving in a masculine way, right? So this is something about the origin of the term. Fine. Anyways, see, if you define the term feminism, you can say that it is not a singular concept, but you will find that it is a polyvalent amalgamation of different complex and contradictory ideas. So you can find some complex and some contradictory ideas in relation to this term, and that is feminism. Fine. Then I'm giving you some definitions given by some feminist critics or feminist authors. See, Lisa S. Price. She wrote a book, and the name of the book is Feminist Frameworks, Building Theory on Violence Against Women. Now, in this book, she defines the term by saying, she says that feminism is a method of analysis. It's a way of looking at the world from the perspective of women. And it questions government policies, culture, ways of doing and being, and it asks how women's lives are affected by these, ideological and institutional practices. So this is the definition of feminism which has been given by Lisa S. Price in her book. I have just told you the name of the book, right? Then there is one more author, and the author is Estelle Friedman. Estelle Friedman. Estelle wrote another book, and that is No Turning Back, the history of feminism and the future of women. So this is the title of the book written by Estelle Friedman. So in this book, Estelle defines feminism by saying that feminism is a belief that men and women are inherently of equal worth. Fine. Then you might have heard the name of the British feminist critic, Rebecca West. Rebecca says, this is a very interesting, statement. She says that I myself have never been able to find out precisely what feminism is. I only know that people call me a feminist whenever I express sentiments that differentiate me from a doormat. Fine. So this is something which has been said by Rebecca West. Right. Then at another point she says that actually she is trying to find out a difference between males and females, between men and women. Right. And she says that the main difference between men and women is that, men are lunatics. Men are lunatics and women are idiots. Idiots. Fine. Then, at another point, she says that the trouble about men is twofold. The trouble about men is twofold. Right? Number one, they cannot learn the truths which are too complicated, T-double-O, too complicated. And number two, they forget truths which are too simple, T-double-O, too simple. So they have two problems basically. They cannot learn truths which are too complicated and they forget truths which are too simple. Fine. Then, let us talk about this movement then somehow, in detail. So we can say that this feminism, it is a serious attempt to formulate the issues and find solutions to gender problems, right? So I have told about so many gender problems. So there have been a number of gender problems in our society. I mean, they are marginalized, they are subjugated, they are discriminated, and they are not given their fundamental rights, and they are not given their social, political, and other rights, right? So this movement, or I mean, it was started by Simone de Beauvoir, and she started it in her book The Second Sex, and I hope you know that it was published in 1949. So this movement, it was started by Simone de Beauvoir in 1949, but it gained momentum in 1960s. Right. Now in this book, The Second Sex, Simone says that legislators, priests, philosophers, writers, and scientists, they all have striven to show that the subordinate position of women is willed in heaven and it is advantageous on earth. So, in this statement, you can find the deeply rooted gender bias, right? So, she's trying to say that all the legislators, all the philosophers, priests, writers, all the people who have some influence in the society, so they all have tried to show that the subordinate, the subjugated position of women, that is willed in heaven, means it has been the will of the Almighty. It has been the desire of the Almighty to give secondary position to these women, and at the same time it is advantageous on this earth. Means if women are having secondary status here in the society, here on the earth, it means it is beneficial for this society. So this is for the benefit of the society, right? Actually, she points out that actually she's trying to say that women are not minority like the blacks, and at the same time they are not a product of history like the proletariat. Fine. But still, they are subjugated. They are, marginalized, and they are, treated in a very different manner. Not in one age, but in all the ages they have been treated very differently. Right. Now this unequal status of women, it has been highlighted earlier also. And let me begin with Mary Wollstonecraft. I hope you remember that she wrote the book A Vindication of the Rights of Women, and it was published in 1792. Fine. Actually, in this book, Wollstonecraft, she was basically reacting to the ideas of Rousseau. I hope you remember that Rousseau wrote a treatise on education, and actually it is known as Emily or on education, and it was published in 1762. Fine. Now, in this treatise, Rousseau basically advocates different models or different methods of education for males and females, for men and women. Now, in this treatise, he says that males should be educated to develop their natural instincts for freedom and to be ideal citizens, right? And girls should, they should be educated so that, they fit the frame of good mothers and good wives and good sisters and good women, right? So he makes an advocacy for different models of education for males and for females. So males must be educated in a way so that, so that they should become, the good denizens or the good citizens of their nations. And girls, they must be educated in a way so that they fit the frame of good mothers, good wives, and good women. Now, Wollstonecraft, she reacted to this idea, and she reacted to this idea in her book, A Vindication of the Rights of Women. Fine. Now, in this book, she says that women should have equal participation in all the fields. They should have equal opportunities in all the fields, be it the educational field, or be it the social field, or be it any other field. Right? She says that there is no fundamental difference between men and women except their social environment. Fine. And she argues for equal education for women. Then she says that virtues cannot be assigned to one sex. Actually, there are so many myths which are still working in our society. And what are the myths? I mean, these are false perceptions basically. Fine. Do you feel that only women can be modest? Only they can be chaste? Only they can be virgin? What about males? Do you feel that males can also be modest? They also can be chaste? Or they also can be, virgin? So even today, these words like modesty, chastity, and virginity, these are mentioned or these are used in relation to women only. And these words are not meant for males. Have you ever heard any statement stating that this male is virgin? So this virginity is confined to a female only. Why? That is a big question. So Wollstonecraft says that virtues cannot be assigned to one sex. Particularly the virtues like modesty and chastity they cannot be assigned to one sex. And they can be assigned to, both the sexes. They can be assigned to both the sexes. If we can talk about the virginity and modesty and chastity of a woman, we can also talk about the virginity and chastity and modesty of a man. I hope you remember William Faulkner. Faulkner also said, Faulkner was basically, he had very, very derogatory ideas about women. Uh, you know, at one point he said that women are basically responsible for all the pains and problems and sufferings of males, and these females, they torture males in different forms, sometimes in the form of a mother, sometimes in the form of a sister, and sometimes in the form of a wife, right? And he says that they all are illogical and misfit, and they are not able to take any kind of, you know, they are not able to take any kind of rational judgment. It means they are absolutely irrational. Then he says that most of women are promiscuous. Promiscuous, that is a very derogatory word in relation to the character of females. So he says that most of women are promiscuous, right? Again, he says that women like to be beaten by their husbands. Most of the women like to be beaten by their husbands, right? Then he says that they are habitual of losing some small articles like needle in the household. But at the same time, they are also able to find the articles which remain invisible to males, in the household. Right. And finally, he says that they all are bitches. They all are bitches. They are not virgin. So his final statement is that women are never virgin. And purity is a negative state. That's why, contrary to nature. Try to understand, there is a kind of psychological issue behind this statement. He says that purity is a negative state, and that's why it is quite contrary to nature. Right? So, Wallacecraft says that virtues like modesty and chastity, they can be assigned to both sexes. If we can talk of virginity and chastity about a woman, we can talk about the same things for a man also. I hope it is clear to you people. Fine. So what I'm trying to say is that the problems of women, they have been raised earlier also, and the first attempt was made by Mary Wollstonecraft in her book A Vindication of the Rights of Women, and remember it was written in 1792. Fine. Then you know Virginia Woolf.